And to complete the group are the host families. I don't have to read this. Eddie explained it. There were 4 of us that stayed with the Story family. $15 a week, clean sheets, breakfast, all you could eat, a bottomless urn of coffee, and boy, did we need a bottomless urn of coffee. And, here we are today. These host families, all the players, because without the host families, it would be harder for this league to fully complete its role. And the relationships between the players and the host family go well beyond the summer months. I remember Veritek was up here a few years ago, and it was his host mother that introduced him. That's who he wanted. Okay. My first year in Chatham, I shared an apartment with another player, and then Ed told the story where in 1965, George came to Chatham. He and I, and there were 2 other ball players. Billy Cheslock, who is here today, was one of the 4. And then the following year, Ed came in as well as Joe. And the 4 of us were now roomed together for the next 2 years. And so what are the odds? What are the odds that 4 roommates living in the same house, well, obviously 4 roommates. Don't use that one. Would be inducted into the Hall of Fame. And as Ed said, John, Ed, and Christine of the Stories are here with us today. The 4 years that I played at Chatham were the most carefree, enjoyable years I ever played. Of course, being on winning teams didn't hurt. As time passed, I didn't realize how important my experience on the Cape meant to me until Paul and Lori Gallo held a reunion, and he told me it was 6 years ago, 2001. I hadn't planned on attending, and I think I sent a note in February saying I wouldn't be able to. But Eddie also mentioned that I play for a gentleman, and I use that term with the utmost respect, John Carroll. John had coached in Chatham in the early 60s, but when the Red Sox brought a team in 64, John didn't return. My 4 years in Chatham were directly responsible because of him. The July of the reunion that the Gallops were putting together, I was to meet my wife Lena in Ireland, and we were to holiday for a couple of weeks. But as luck or fate would have it, John contracted cancer that winter. And when I saw him again late that spring, in June, he asked, here he is in his hospital bed, and he asked me if I was going to the Chatham reunion. And I said, gee, Coach, I don't think so. Lena and I are going to Ireland. She's already in England on a trade mission. I'm going to meet her in Ireland. And he leaned on one shoulder, and for anybody who's ever coached knows exactly this. He said, Laurie's put a lot of effort into this. You call Lena up and tell her you're going to be in Chatham in July. So you going to argue? Yes, Coach. That evening, 9 o'clock Eastern Time, not a favorite time for the landlord of the apartment in which she was staying in London, I called her up, and she said, absolutely. And so that July weekend, 4th of July weekend, my reconnect with Chatham began, including my reconnect with my former roommates. And here we are, full circle. So what has changed since we played? Not much. The game's changed, I suppose a lot, depends who you talk to. Designated hitter, the use of pitchers is different, bigger, faster, stronger. But the game itself is unchanged. The Cape League game is timeless. Visit any Cape League game on a warm summer's evening, remove the iPods, the cell phones, and the radar guns, and watch the young kids play tag. Other kids try to gather autographs from the players in the bullpen. Still other kids play catch and pretend they've made the game-winning play, while the beach chairs and their inhabitants, securely fastened in, holding bug repellent and a blanket surround the field, and of course the stands were always full. Today, a Cape League game is as much a Norman Rockwell painting as it was when I played. Baseball is America's past, its present, its future. It's a game of statistics, legends, and myths, and it ain't easy. What other sport would induct anyone to a Hall of Fame who fails 65% of the time? A team sport played by 9 individuals. Mother, apple pie, and Chevrolet, baseball. There have been more movies made about the game than any other sport, with boxing the only possible exception. We understood baseball's verbal reality as Robert Redford hit the cover off the ball in the natural. And we all remember the home run in Bull Durham that was hit so high and so far, it should have had a stewardess on board. I used that line with one of my pitches. He didn't think it was very funny. It's the first game we played with our children. I was bouncing balls off my daughter's nose at the age of 2 months, which is why her nose is different than anybody else's in the family. Cross those white lines, or as Jimmy Buffett says, those navigational beacons, and we go back in time. I've gone back in time today, and it's been a thrill. In 1846, Walt Whitman wrote, "In our sundown perambulations of late, through the outer parts of Brooklyn, we have observed several parties of youngsters playing base, a certain game of ball. Let us go forth a while and get better air in our lungs, and let us leave our closed rooms. The game of ball is glorious." In the field of dreams, as shoeless Joe Jackson enters the field, starry-eyed, he looks around and he asks of Ray Kinsella, played by Kevin Costner, "Is this heaven?" And Costner replies, and you know the answer, "No, it's Iowa." For me, for my teammates, heaven to us were the playing fields of the Cape League. Heaven to us was having the honor and the privilege of playing for Chatham. Thank you.
Listening to Steve talk about baseball so eloquently, it reminds me of James Earl Jones' speech at the end of Field of Dreams. Baseball, Ray. And I think they could have substituted the speech that wound up in the movie for the speech that, the things that Steve had to say about baseball, and would have been just as memorable. Thank you very much, and our best wishes to your wife as well. Well, you know, I was so delighted when I heard that Walt Terrell was going to